one, we're going to be following two agendas this evening. The first agenda we're going to be following is the Committee of the Whole meeting agenda, and that will be followed by our Council agenda. So with that, we're going to start tonight's meeting off with a prayer from Councillor Dave Elliott, and that will be followed by the National Anthem by Mr. Joel Longfellow. Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mayor. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, you have given us the opportunity to be leaders in our community. You have given us the opportunity to make decisions that impact all of our citizens and visitors to our city alike. And Lord, we just ask that you bless us with open hearts and open minds tonight as we discuss any item that may come up. Let us rule with open hearts, make decisions that will benefit our city. And Lord, we just ask for the rest of the summer if you would give safe travels to all those citizens who are traveling out of our city for their holidays, and also bless those visitors that are coming into the city as well. And we just hope that everybody has a wonderful rest of the summer. And we just pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all thy sons command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, but true north, strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you, Joel. As always, great job.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My pleasure as always.
Members of Council, actually, Madam Clerk, are there any addendum items tonight?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, there is one item this evening, the addition of item 14, which is a memorandum from the CA concerning a minor addition to the fees and charges bylaw for the Overholt Cemetery, and this item was circulated via addendum on August 9th.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And you actually accepted an addendum item from the CAO's office. I'm impressed. Members of the Council, I need a motion to confirm the agenda, please. Councillor Steele, Councillor Bodner, are there any questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. Thank you. Members, are there any disclosures of interest this evening? With none, we'll move on to items requiring a separate discussion. Are there any items requiring a separate discussion? Councillor Steele.
Thank you, Your Worship. Item 1.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further items? With none, motion to accept the remainder of the items, please. Councillor Desmarais, Councillor Danch. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. So for all you members of the gallery that are waiting for your item, unless it's item 1, you can leave. Maybe we should take a recess to allow the 300 members to clear the chamber. Thank you, Mr. Lamy. We'll now move on to delegations. We have one delegation this evening, Mr. Joe Pinelli. Mr. Pinelli, if you want to come on up. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor. And
Just want to press the gray button, Joe. Thanks.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. My presentation I want to cancel simply because it's been resolved. So I thank you very much. And,
Wonderful.
Wish you a nice evening.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate it. Thanks for your time this evening. Members, we're going to move along now to my report. I didn't have a report, but I just wanted to express my appreciation to all the folks that really made our City Signature event a great success. As many of you know, Canal Days happened last weekend, or the weekend before last. And over the course of those 4 days, we experienced a great amount of people, over 300,000 people that came into the city. And I wanted to take this time to express my appreciation to city staff who went well above the call of duty, as well as the many volunteers. Ange led the volunteer team this year, to yourself, Councillor Desmarais, as well as to all the volunteers that you had come out to take part in the Canal Days festivities. A great big thank you. And to the sponsors. Quite frankly, love the sponsors that come year after year to help us finance this event, which comes with what a $550,000 price tag attached to it, to them as well. A great big thank you. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention our residents. I do understand, I think we all recognize that when you bring that amount of people into a small city like Colborne, it does greatly impact in the city, whether it be our infrastructure, whether it be the traffic, or just simply those folks that seem not to want to go away until the wee hours of the morning and hang out in the city until those hours. So to the residents of the city as well, I do express my sincere appreciation for your patience and your involvement within the event as well. I think it goes without saying that the city of Port Colborne successfully hosted the world. Our city's consistent contribution to the lure of Niagara validates the region of Niagara as a destination that's second to none throughout both Canada, if not North America, if not the world. We're becoming more and more of a destination because I think people are starting to recognize that the lure of the Niagara region is a lot more than just the falls. Although the falls continually is the jewel, we all are contributing to that destination of Niagara, and people are starting to recognize that internationally. Canal Days is but one of our efforts to ensure that Port Colborne and Niagara are internationally recognized. We expect within this particular event that the business community, in particular the retail commercial part of the business community, recognize big numbers this year with respect to people frequenting their businesses. And we also expect that we introduce to the city of Port Colborne and as well the region of Niagara to a whole new generation of travelers and destination seekers. So with that, once again, I do want to express my sincere appreciation to all those that made it happen, not just here in the city, but throughout the entire region of Niagara, and from all of us here in the city of Port Colborne. And on behalf of you, members of council, a great big thank you for all your participation, as well as now looking forward within our planning stages, as well as doing this all over again in 2013. Looking forward to your continued participation as well as support going into that year, and of course another wonderful Canal Days event. So with that, members, as well, I do have a message here from Councillor Barrick. Councillor Barrick was unable to attend this evening, but wanted me to mention on his behalf the Have Your Say and Win promotion that the region of Niagara is doing to gather input for our 2013 regional budget. Residents can go to the region's website and complete a short survey to get their thoughts on the upcoming 2013 regional budget. And of course, with that, enter for a chance to win a gift certificate to a local restaurant. The survey closes on August 31st, and although there's a contest attached to it, to all the members, we encourage you to have your input, your say, and as we do here in the city, for the 2013 budget with the region's 2013 budget as well. So members of council, with that, are there any questions or comments for myself or the regional councillor? With none, we'll move on to councillors' items, no business. No councillors' items, no business. You guys are good. You guys are really good. So with that, any updates from staff? Mr. Howe.
First, the council last meeting has approved a noise exemption, a road closing bylaw for the Legion for event, and they canceled for weather. And today we asked if it was a possibility if that same bylaw and noise exemption could be approved. Tonight it's a walk-in as part of the approval from last meeting. It's really nothing new. I'm sorry. It really is nothing new. It was approved. We're asking council. The clerk had circulated a memo, and we're asking council to consider the motion that's approved on here, just basically confirm and to revise the road closing bylaw date.
Thank you, Mr. Howe. First of all, I ask for leave of council to accept that. Councillor Bodnar, Councillor Elliott, are there any questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. If I can have a member of council read the recommendation out. Councillor Steele.
Thank you, Your Worship. The council hereby approves and authorizes the closure of the following roads for the purposes of controlling traffic for the Royal Canadian Legion street bands, 5 p.m. on Friday, August 17th, until 1 a.m. on Saturday, August 18th. Catherine Street from the northernmost part of Clarence Street to the southernmost limit of the intersection of the alley behind Matheson's drugstore. The bylaw enforcement division issue a temporary temporary permit for a noise bylaw exemption for the street dance. The above referenced approval be conditional upon the Royal Canadian Legion notifying area residents of said event.
Thank you, Councillor Steele. Do I have a second to that, please? Councillor Demoran. Actually, Councillor Elliott, that's your word. Take Councillor Elliott as a seconder. Any questions or comments? Councillor Kenny?
Thank you, Worship. I also wondered if we could address the clerk's concern that we add crop rain date to our noise exemption bylaw.
Madam Clerk, do you want to elaborate on that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. During the course of email correspondence between me and the Bylaw Enforcement Division, I recommended that perhaps Bylaw Enforcement might like to add the provision for a rain date on the noise bylaw exemption application form in order to avoid this type of incident in the future.
Thank you. Great. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Thank you, Councillor Kenny. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Thank you, members. Any other updates? Good. Councillor Elliott?
I know we passed it in block, but I don't want to put Ron on the spot, but maybe item 13 you'd want to speak to. We got some funding, and this is a heck of a project, and we may be the leaders in this type of work where we're going to share our findings with not only the rest of the province, but the rest of the country, and engineering should be able to stand up and take a battle over this one.
Mr. Hanson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Elliott. Pleased to speak to this. We were very fortunate when we made an application in 2011 for this particular program showcasing water innovation. As Council knows, we were going forward with a project to try to determine where our water losses are within the system, and working on an advanced SCADA system with flow monitoring within the watering system. And we were fortunate enough to see this funding come available in 2011. We made an application for it, and we were very fortunate to acquire $224,000 in funding for this project out of a total project cost of $300, and I think we're at about the 2/3, 67% funding for the project. So this is really good news for us. We had budgeted for the first stage of the project. That is underway. It's been underway for some time. With this additional funding, we can now go forward and have we believe, a state-of-the-art system for water loss for SCADA. And the only condition, as Councillor Elliott has said, is that we be able to share the results of this project in the end of this reporting. We'll be very happy to do that. So looking forward to this project and hopefully some really good results to cut our water loss in the system.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson. And just for the folks on COGECO, SCADA stands for?
Let's see. Supervisory control and data acquisition. What it is, SCADA can be used in many different forms in the water system. It is the way of measuring, a computer measurement of the water flow monitors we have in the system. They come up on a large board. The monitoring is there on the regional water plant system. And in doing that, we can see real-time losses. So as you go and do leak detection, as you turn down a valve within a particular area, you can actually see if the flows drop. If that's the case, you can actually pinpoint water main breaks and losses in any particular area of the system. So it's real time. Rather than guessing where the losses are, it's real time measurement of what the flows are within the system.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson, and thank you for highlighting that, Councillor Elliott. I think for the most part it validates a lot of the work that operations have been doing for the last, I'd say, close to a decade now, trying to find these water losses. Yeah, at least a decade, I know. But using modern technology, of course, helps a great deal, and hopefully we can start nailing these different quadrants of the city, so that therefore we can find some savings to the ratepayers. So, good job on to you and your team. Well done. Members of the council, we're now going to move on to the adoption of the minutes. We have the minutes of the 18th meeting regular of the Committee of the Whole, dated July 23rd, 2012. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Danch, Councillor Elliott. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Thank you, members. We'll now move on to the items requiring a separate discussion. Councillor Steele.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I thank our clerk for taking it off last meeting, and putting it to this one. My motion is that the drink limit for the City of Port Colborne events before, and that this take effect in 2013.
Thank you, Councillor Steele. Do I have a seconder to that motion, please? Councillor Elliott. Questions or comments? Councillor Steele.
Thank you, Your Worship. Originally, I was going to come forward with a bit of a lengthier motion. Fortunately or unfortunately, it's already gone to the one committee, which was the Canal Days Committee, and I guess discussed at length. And it's unfortunate that I wasn't invited to attend that meeting. I was a little disappointed in that, but that's fine. I read about it in the paper, so I guess that's enough that was needed. But it does bother me that it went there and I wasn't asked to attend. So I thought we could, in my original motion, go through a series of recommendations. But that's fine. I thought I'd make it short and sweet. I was congratulated by the clerk to keep it short and sweet. So I think this past Canal Days is proof of the pudding. Not only have I spoken to the volunteers behind the bar, I worked there on Friday night. I spoke to a former councillor, Jack Roy, who worked there Saturday, and he actually stopped in the street on the weekend, Sunday morning. And he said, I'm behind you on the Ford drink. He said, it was chaos Saturday night. I said, well, I should have been there Friday night. He said, it wasn't any better. And even on Friday night, I worked with Councillor Elliott. The public from Port Colborne who had read about this in the paper actually supported it and said, I think it's a better idea, especially when people are waiting almost up to an hour to get a drink. And again, I've said this before, I think we're adults, we have good volunteers, we train them well, I believe, because if you look at our past track record as an organization that runs a big event here in Market Square, very rarely is there a problem. Yes, there's the odd little scuffle or something that might happen. Yes, somebody might drink a little bit too much, but I think our volunteers do a heck of a job of cutting people off, or our ticket booth that I know Councillor Kenny works at. That they see the signs, and they can tell when they can cut somebody off. It still doesn't stop somebody else from giving them a ticket or giving them a drink or whatever out in the Market Square. But I think on the whole, our events run very well. We have good police presence, we have good security. Talking to Councillor Demery tonight, I think there have to be changes as far as how we operate our bar and where our ticket sales are, but that's a discussion for another day. But those are certainly good things that have been brought forward. But this year, with the opening up of a larger area, we've had crowds that I've never seen the size of, which was this past year. On Friday night, we sold more cases of beer than we have in 10 years on a Friday night. There was a lot of people there. They were deep, deep, deep. And I don't think that whether they get 2 beers or 4 is going to make a big difference in that it's going to become helter-skelter out in the Market Square. But the majority of people that were there were older. It seemed like an older crowd to me. For them to come with friends and you've kind of scattered out your spot to watch the bands, a few of the husbands or a few of the wives or boyfriends, girlfriends, whatever they may be, friends, go in and grab 4 drinks to take back, as opposed to everybody losing their spot, standing in line for all that time. I mean, they came up, they asked for 2, and they literally, at times, were screaming at our bartenders. Unjustifiably, because they've got it where you can go to any local bar and order more than a couple of drinks at a time, especially if you're with a group of people. I also attended an event, which is not a city event, it's a Canal Days event, but it's not run by the city, which is Canadian Corps. No drink limit. Almost 1,000 people there on Saturday night to see Horns from Hell. No chaos, great crowd. We went in, we were going rounds amongst ourselves because we were there with a whole group of people. No problems. Nobody got out of hand. Again, good security, good police presence walking around. Volunteers that they had of the Canadian Corps walking around, plus the guy that runs the whole event, that's the chairman of that committee, always walking around seeing if everybody's fine. I mean, it bothers me that we're becoming this nanny state where every time I turn around, we're being pegged with something that, sorry, you're not adult enough to look after things. I really believe we are. I think people come here because it's a very safe event, and they know the presence that we hire. We spend a lot of money on security, whether it be private or Niagara Regional Police. We spend a lot of money on it. It's a huge part of our Canal Days because it's safe. It's very safe. And I spoke to I still call him the police chief, but staff sergeant here, Tim Wilichka, on Friday evening, just as we were going in, they were going in for a briefing actually here. And, we got talking about a few things. And that was one, he's been in and out of Port Colborne over his career in the police department. He does say, this is one event that there's very few problems. As I said, there are things that happen, but on the whole, it's a very good, very safe event. And I think our public and our patrons have learned to see that. And I think it's because we, as a city, and our volunteers and our staff have put together a good program. And I really believe the 2-drink limit can be increased to 4. If somebody can persuade me otherwise, it better be a good story, because I just think it's ridiculous. I really do. And that's why I brought this up.
Thank you, Councilor Steele. Questions or comments further? Councilor Demeray and Bodnar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would definitely not support a 4-drink limit, and as I've spoken with Councilor Steele, the reasons are very much as we're told that the Canal Days Committee, the Volunteer Committee, and the Flavors Organizing Committee all agree that a 4-drink limit will create even more of a burden on staff and on volunteers to keep order. And it's a problem, no matter how you look at it. Our insurance company has advised us that it would not be the right way to go to increasing the limit. The local police have advised us it would not be the right way to go. The AGCO has said, obviously, it's not the right way to go. They're very supportive of what we have in place right now. But I have to agree with Councilor Steele about the chaos. It was chaotic, there's no question. Larger crowds require a different bar setup. There's no question of that. So we need to put on more volunteers, more serving stations. That would be the way to deal with it. That would create shorter lines, have actual queues so that people could line up, and there would be more order created, and things would move along a lot quicker than they did in this particular weekend. So I understand the chaos, but I think that there are better answers to it, and it would be dealt with better by changing the way we conduct the service in Market Square rather than changing the drink limit and just putting, we could then make a person legally drunk, like over the limit in one stop at the bar. I don't think that's a good way to go.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Bodnar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As a member of the Canal Days Committee, I apologize to Councilor Steele. It probably would have been better if he would have been at that meeting to certainly give his take on what he was going to bring up and to hear, what thoughts came from the committee in that. And I guess I'm kind of on the same page as Councilor Demeray, in that I'd have to support the Canal Days Committee. Now, I know they don't make policy, council makes policy, but still they certainly have a say in suggestions as to how we should move forward. And I believe the vote was unanimous in not moving away from the 2-drink limit. I agree that a larger bar setup, now whether that's possible with the amount of volunteers we have, but a larger bar setup would move people through the line quicker. Would that satisfy everybody? Maybe not, but I think it certainly would satisfy some people. I don't know. As much as I sympathize with Councilor Steele and his motion here, I think being a member of that committee, I'm going to have to vote against it until I see how the Canal Days Committee can foresee setting that bar, or is it possible, or can we do it? I certainly would entertain another motion if it comes forward, if we can't resolve it that way. But at this point in time, I think I'm going to have to vote against this amendment or motion.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further questions or comments? Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mayor. I can understand where Councilor Steele's coming from. I can support it, and not the fact that we're trying to overserve people. But after working it the last 2 years, and Saturday night last year, Friday night this year, part of the problem is very rarely would you ever see anybody going to come up for 4 drinks for themselves. But you do get people that are here as a couple. And I had it a few times where somebody would come up and say, I want 2 beers and I want one of the coolers. Well, you knew that the 2 beers were for one person and the 1 drink was for somebody else. Now you got to tell them, no, you can only have 2. So now they got to walk back to the back of the line, get rid of the 2, get right back in line, come back up to the bar again and get 2 more to go back. So it's not the volume that you're selling, it's a convenience thing for some people. One of 2 things has to happen. We're not looking to overserve, we're just looking to be more effective. If we can't change the way the bar setup is, and we can't serve people more effectively, I would for sure look at giving people the opportunity to buy 4. So many times I had Friday night guys coming up and saying, I want 4 beers, and the guys are standing behind them. and all they wanted to do was take the beer and turn around and give it to the guy, instead of having, 3, 4, 5 guys in line, you could have 1 or 2, pick the beers up, pass them along, and no, we can only serve you 2, and that's where you start to get emotions, should we say, brewing, and it gets to be confrontational. I know there's a downside. I know that the Canal Days Committee, like you're saying, voted 100% not to go there. I'd like to know from a perspective from the AGCO, why not? To say that, if you serve 4 at a time, it's so much worse than 2, when really somebody could buy 2, hand them to somebody, get back in line to buy 2 more, now they get 4. It really doesn't make any sense. And like Councilor Steele and I were saying earlier, I can walk in any bar in town and I can order as many drinks as I want, there's no limit, and yet when we're serving people here, it's outdoors and you only get to have 2. Somebody has to explain to me the difference, why. I just don't get that. We've made a change in the amount of people we let in. There's more space at Market Square now. There's more people coming in. We either got to pick up our service, redesign our bar. We need more volunteers, so people out there that are watching. We do need more people to help us out. We're so popular that we get 6,000, 7,000 people on Friday night. I would think it had to be at least that many. But for now, if we're going to keep with the same setup and the same number of people, I don't think the problems are going to be as large as they're being made out, especially the AGCO. They don't even want you to serve 1 beer. So I would go for the 4. I'd support it. I just don't think that the problems are going to occur, because it's not going to slow anybody down staying with 2. It's not going to speed it up going with 4. And by all means, we're not promoting drinking and driving and over-serving. We're looking for convenience of people coming to town and making their experience here better. They don't have to go to the bars many times and get in that lineup, so that's why I would support it.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further comments or questions? No further questions or comments? The one thing that members of council may want to consider, because for the most part, Councilor Steele rightly waited till after Canal Days to present this to council, which I appreciate. The Canal Days Committee is going to be going into a post-mortem in the next 2 or 3 weeks. And with that, I'm sure this is going to be one of the topics of a lot of discussion with respect to, as Councilor Elliott alluded to, a more convenient manner of allowing people to get their refreshments at Market Square. I think one of the biggest successes this year, quite frankly, was the opening up of Market Square. Actually, when I was working the latter part of Friday night behind the bar, that's all I heard was how much people appreciated the fact that Market Square was opened up and it was a lot easier to move around and a lot more comfortable for all demographics, for families, for the folks that were single, and of course, for whatever reason. But at the end of the day, it was a lot more comfortable for folks, and we heard that loud and clear. But I think this is going to be a main topic of discussion, and because it doesn't have to be decided upon tomorrow, next week, next month, what I would suggest council may want to do is send this back to the committee. Councilor Steele, and I do apologize, Councilor Steele, for not getting you to that meeting. It just was an oversight, no other reason. But at the end of the day, have Councilor Steele come out, and Councilor Elliott, you're a member of the committee as well. Come on out and let's discuss this in that environment, within that arena. And that way, as was stated that night, Councilor Demeray correctly noted, a lot was talked about and a lot was discussed, and it did have a healthy debate. And of course, it was decided upon the 2 versus the 4. But I don't think there's anything wrong with sending it back. And more is going to be discussed at that meeting than just the limit. I know it's been discussed about the possibility of having a second bar. That comes with its own challenges, with both cash flow as well as volunteers, as well as infrastructure such as the truck itself that holds the refreshments, 2 versus 1. So there's a lot to that as well. My point here is that instead of beating this thing up tonight, that council consider deferring this or referring this back to the Canal Days Committee, and we can have a more healthy discussion with those that are part of the Canal Days Committee versus here on this workshop. So I'll leave that open for members of council for your decision, but that would be my suggestion. Councilor Kenny?
I just want to add then, if we're going to send this back, that we say to the Canal Days Committee, is it possible to make it more convenient? Because really it's about convenience. It's not about how many limit there is to, if it was easier for them to get the beer, they wouldn't mind going back. Like, as far as I'm concerned, the ticket sale should not be near the beer sales. That whole row should be beer sales. if you can get the volunteers. The big thing is getting the volunteers, because volunteers get burnt out. When you're on your feet, because I work flavors, when you're on your feet, walking back and forth to get the beer all the time, that is a big, that's why I don't do it again all day. I'm an old lady now. So, I'll do it at flavors, and I have no problem, but I will sell tickets. And Kim likes me selling tickets, so I cannot be. So I think the ticket should be, maybe get even the tickets at this office. I know it's a security thing, and your whole bar along that side. But there has to be a way to make it more convenient. 2 is enough, as far as I'm concerned. It's enough for you, but if you make it more convenient, so it should go back to the Canal Days Committee, I totally believe that, and ask them if there's a way they have enough volunteers to handle what we bring in. We always talk about how many people we're having, but there has to be a more convenient way for them to get that refreshment.
Thank you. Councilor Demmer?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would not be against sending it back to, sending it back to the committee. I do already have in my possession a plan for a new bar, which makes really good sense. And I think putting that on the table along with these suggestions is a good idea, so we can work it out to see what fits best. I totally agree, there is complete chaos, and we do have to come to an answer for it. We can get the volunteers. We did this year fill the minimum requirements that we were given by both the tickets and the bar, and they were there. But there was no way of knowing how many people were going to show up. It was an amazing turnout, and obviously we weren't prepared for it, so that made a big difference. But next year we won't get caught that way. We'll have extras no matter what. But seriously, we do need to look at a whole new setup, and we do have some options working. And if Councillor Steele sits down with us, I think we could probably work something out.
Well, and I think that's the key here, is to get back to the committee and really present everything on the table. Councillor Steele's thoughts, the thoughts of maybe a different bar setup, and who knows, at the end of the day, one can suffice over the other. I'd be careful on using the word chaos. I wouldn't necessarily say it was chaos, but I would say there was a lot of people. You know, when you're looking at 30 or 40 people back, you know, it does become frustrating for the. And I go to Councillor Elliott's comments. You know, we're there to make it more convenient, more comfortable for the folks to be able to enjoy their night. Sitting in line for 15, 20 minutes, and half an hour isn't comfortable. It isn't convenient, and it isn't a way most people want to spend their evening. So I get what Councillor Steele's getting at. There's no question, we all get that. But it's just a matter of what we do to try and alleviate those pressures. And again, you know, I'll leave it up to council, but I would personally recommend that we toss it back at the committee and let's deal with it over there, and hopefully come to a resolve that way. Councillor Steele?
Thank you, Worship. And I'm going to let it go through as far as I'm concerned. I mean, we talked about the counties. The only concern I have here, though, you're saying you're sending it back to a committee. All due respect to all the people in the committee, they do great jobs. What are the guys doing kites, the guys doing the car show, know about what, unless they come down here, don't know what goes on? You've got to, those aren't the people you should be talking to. It's the volunteers you should be bringing out. You should be grabbing your volunteers that work the tickets in the bar at Flavors, and your volunteers that work the tickets in the bar at Canal Days, and bringing them forward. They're the ones that are going to tell you what the problems are. So I'll tell you, when you got your volunteers walking out in the middle of an event because they've had enough of being screamed at and chaos, and it was. We were there. It was chaos working that bar on Friday night. And at times you were afraid that some people were going to get out of hand because they didn't want to stand in line for almost an hour to get a beer or a cooler. And their whole thing was, and the majority of people that spoke to me that night, you know, they'd yell across because I was working behind with the big bins trying to keep the drinks cold. It was so hot. Was it, as Councilor White said, it's not like they're coming up to grab 4 beers to go guzzle beers. It's they're there with a group of people, and it really pissed them off to come up and go, it's my round, or I'm, you know, they're standing at our spot and they grab 4 drinks with coolers, beer, whatever you want to give them, and they're gone. That's what really peeves them off. You know, and people walked in. We had volunteers that left. Sorry, because you can only scream at somebody so long. They're not paid to do this. You know, you're back there, it's busy, it's hot, things really weren't running well. I'll tell you that right now, they weren't running well at all. Poor girl that looked after the bar was not given the right tools. But that's irrelevant. That's all logistics that should be changed regardless of whether you give 1 or 100 drinks out to somebody. All I'm saying is it's got to be convenient. Your demographics have changed as far as you know, how people treat alcohol nowadays. You know, again, we're a good event. We don't have a big, huge stem of problems. And to stand here and say that this could lead to problems, I think is BS, but that's another story. But, you know, I don't think it's the Canales Committee. I don't think a guy that runs the kite show really knows what goes on down here. I don't. They're too busy with their events. They're not the ones that are here. So I think aside from that, we should bring out our fire chief and Mr. Benya and our staff that look after this portion of the stuff. And get your volunteers that work this event. Get their input on it. Dave and I did that night. They spoke to us. Get those people, not the kite flyers and the car show people and this event or that event, because that's not what they do. That's not their forte. Bring out the people that actually do the job. That's who I want to talk to. Because quite frankly, I don't want the guy down the kite show setting policy for something he knows really nothing about, other than listening to horror stories that are sent out there. Sure, all these people are going to tell you the worst thing could happen. But how long has this been going on? You know, you go back to the days of street dances on West Street. One night, the street was closed off. It's not like it is now. And there was no problems back then. Again, it goes back to security, police, and training your volunteers. And that's where I'm coming from with this. If you want to postmortem on it, I don't want to talk to those people in the committee, because they really don't know what you're talking about. I want to talk to a volunteer that can give me feedback as a counselor of what went on, what they should see goes on, how we can do it better, how to make their life easier. You know, I know Angie looked after the volunteers. I think she's got some great ideas, but I'd like to see you go through for 2013. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And just a comment to that. There are a lot more people that sit on the committee than just people that run the different venues.
Oh, I understand.
You know, we have the fire prevention officer there, Mike Bendia, who, by the way, spends his entire time during the event, not his entire time, but most of his time with the AGCO. The AGCO is also part of the committee. When need be, they don't come with every meeting, but when we discuss things like this, they do show up and are part of the discussion. The Niagara Regional Police are part of the committee, so so I get what you're saying in terms of the folks that may not be directly impacted or directly involved in Market Square. However, they are part of the team as well, and their thoughts count. But for the most part, everyone has a role to play on the committee, and there is a large contingent on the committee that does represent the Market Square, both between sellers of tickets or drinks, or those that actually take care of the logistics at Market Square, including the NRP, the AGCO, and even staff. We have one of them here this evening, and I'm sure she has a lot to say, and she's biting her tongue right now. But those comments can be brought up at that post-mortem meeting, and that would set the ball rolling for next year's recommendations. The second point I want to make is not unlike any other subcommittee, committee, board, agency that reports to this council. They're just making recommendations. We're the ones that actually set the policy. And of course, then when we get into the event, the AGCO looks at two things. The AGCO looks at, one, law, what's the law? And secondly, they also look at what's the policy. And is the city actually abiding by its own policy? So although they can't legally, or how can I say this? Although they can't come down on us not abiding by our own policy, they can sure as heck recommend against next year's event based on the city not abiding by its own policy. So we got to be very careful, and that's why I sympathize with where you're coming from, because you know, if that policy is 2 drinks, then the expectation is 2 drinks. If it's 4 drinks, then it's 4 drinks. So I hear you loud and clear. The only thing I'm saying is, with all due respect to the folks that are around that table during the canal days, that instead of hashing it out here, to do it there, so that therefore we can have the AGCO at the meeting, we can have the NRP at the meeting, we can have all those that are involved in planning the meeting versus just us as council, who for the most part, besides 3 or 4 of us, aren't a part of that process. So, you know, that's what I would recommend. So, but it's up to members of council, and I do have 2 other speakers. I have Councillor Danch and Councillor Elliott. Councillor Danch.
Short and sweet, not much of a beer drinker. That's a lie. I'd have to kind of agree with Bill. Just because you have a 4-drink limit, that doesn't mean that every customer that comes up is going to want 4. Initially, when these events start, I'm sure it's madcap mayhem, and everybody kind of gives her. But then, as the evening progresses, people do tend to slow up a little bit if you have some intelligence, of course. And I don't think it's a bad thing. Nothing says you have to buy 4. If you just want a cooler and a beer for yourself and your wife, that's fine. It's all about keeping your customer happy. I think we're all in the same giver, and I don't know, that's my feeling. I do support the 4-drink limit.
Thank you. Councilor Elliott?
Thank you, Mayor. I know Councilor Steele will get mad at me for this, but I'll move that we take it back to the committee, just to get everybody involved. But what I would suggest is that we get the bar manager, come to the meeting, and if you've got a list of all the people that work at the bar, if we can invite them, just to get their perspective, because truly, and I take everybody's input at the committee meeting to heart, because everybody's got something good to say. But yeah, we do need to talk to the people that are actually on the ground working this. And it's funny that we talk about our policy is 2 drinks. What does the law say? I mean, we make the policy that you can have 2, but actually under the AGCO's rules, how many can you serve? Whatever you want, right? It can be wide open. So really, the 2-drink limit is just our policy, right? You're actually a licensed bar, and you can serve 10, 15, 20, whatever you want. Not that we would, and don't put that out there. There's more people coming up next year, but it's a policy decision that we're making, and 2 or 4, I think we really have to take a look at it, not only from convenience perspective, but it drives revenue, and if we're going to get more people to come out because of the setup, because the setup was fantastic. I actually asked the security guard on the way out. I left at 12:30, and asked the security guard on the way out, what was it like tonight? Not one single problem. And I looked at him and I said, like, you're serious? You didn't have any problems? NRP arrested 1 person on the way out because they got a little mouthy. Other than that, there wasn't one problem that security had to look after. I kept kind of looking out in the crowd because you can kind of see when they gather, nothing. And to have that many people in this square without any problems, maybe we ought to take a look at the convenience of 4. So, but I move that we send it back to committee. I know Bill probably won't like that, but
Do we have a second to that?
if we get a committee together.
Thank you, Councilor Elliott. Councilor Kenny, no comments on it, no questions? All those in favor of sending it back? Opposed? That would be carried. Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Steele. Councilor Elliott? We'll now move on to notices of motion. Are there any notices of motion this evening? With none, I will move on to motion to adjourn this portion of tonight's meeting. Councilor Kenny, Councilor Danch, questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Thank you. We'll now move on to the council portion of our agenda. Madam Clerk, are there any addendum items?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, there's one this evening. It's the addition of item 14, a memorandum from the CAO regarding a change to the fees and charges bylaw for the Overhaul Cemetery, and that was circulated on August 9th via addendum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Members of council, motion to confirm the agenda, please. Councilor Danch, Councilor Biden, questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Are there any disclosures of interest? With none, we'll move on to the adoption of the minutes. We have 4 sets of minutes here, and I'll do them in block. The minutes of the 26th meeting special of council, dated July 23rd, 2012. The minutes of the 27th regular meeting of council, July 23rd, 2012. The minutes of the 28th meeting special of council, dated July 30th, 2012. And finally, the minutes of the 29th meeting special of council, dated August 1st, 2012. Mover and seconder, please. Councilor Kenny, Councilor Emery. A little hesitation there, be? Questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Thank you. We'll now move on to items requiring a separate discussion. Councilor Steele.
Actually, I just have a question to staff with regards to item, I apologize, I didn't read it earlier, because the staff member would normally ask isn't here, so, item number 4, just a quick question on that.
Sure, go ahead.
Can I ask that now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. The Council of the Corporation of the City of Port Colborne receives this report for information. It's report 2012-26, subject hourly ice rental contract. As far as I know, in speaking with Brian and Gary with regards to the contracts, be specific addendums to the main contract for Port Colborne minor hockey, adult hockey, and junior B hockey. My only other concern is for tournaments. Will we have an addendum come forward with a firm set of rules for how we collect money prior to how a tournament runs? I don't think we've ever done a very good job of that, to be quite honest. I'd like to know that question.
Mr. Howe.
Your Worship, the answer is yes.
Thank you. Councilor?
Thank you, Worship. And timeline?
Mr. Howe.
I'm going to suggest within the next month and a half. The new manager begins on the 27th, and during this period, Mr. Mickens has been working on these, and he'll be back, part of a contract to finish these off also.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Councillor?
Well, we have a gentleman that's we've hired there now to look after all our ice stuff, which I understand he's written this one. Can you not get going on that one so it can be here earlier?
Mr. Hall?
I don't know the status, Your Worship. I know all of it has to go through the manager of the department and the director before it gets to this table. I can't tell you the status beyond that. So I feel safe in saying over the next month and a half. If it can be sooner, we'll try that, Your Worship.
Thank you.
Thank you. Or at least if Mr. Elliott can get a draft out to us to look at prior to being approved by our new director, then I would appreciate that. So if he does, my understanding is he's the one that put these together. If that's the case, at least get us to council so we can ask our questions even prior to the director catching up, looking at it, with all the other duties he's got to catch up on as an employee, which is fine. But if that can come to us earlier, I'd really appreciate that.
Thank you. That's fine, Mr. Hall.
We'll see what we can do, Your Worship.
Great.
Thank you.
And just for clarification, the manager, not the director.
Manager, sorry.
No problem. Members of council, in block, mover and seconder, please, for the items listed on your agenda. Councillor Kenny, it's not like you to hesitate. Councillor Kenny, seconder, Councillor Wagner. There's not, see that's decisiveness. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Thank you, members. I do have no proclamation this evening, members. I have a proclamation that whereas October 16th, 2012 is National Feral Cat Day, a day dedicated to educating communities about feral cats and trap, neuter, vaccinate, return, a humane method of care for unowned cats. And whereas the trap, neuter, vaccinate, return improves the lives of cats, the stresses and behaviors associated with breeding, such as yowling and fighting, stop. And whereas the trap, neuter, vaccinate, return is recognized throughout the U.S. and Canada as a humane and responsible way to manage feral cats. Now therefore, I, Mayor Vincent Badaway, proclaim Tuesday, October 16, 2012, as National Feral Cat Day in the city of Port Colborne, and encourage all our residents to support the trap, neuter, vaccinate, return as a responsible and humane method of dealing with feral cat populations. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Danch, Councillor Elliott. Questions or comments? You're so slow, Councillor. I'm looking to my left now. These guys are more decisive. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Thank you, members. We'll now move on to the minutes of boards, commissions, and committees. We have one set of minutes, the minutes of the Canal Days Advisory Committee meeting of June 20th, 2012. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Kenny. Councillor Desmarais. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Are there any notices of motion? Madam Clerk, the introduction of the bylaws, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, that the following bylaws be read a first, second, third time and finally passed. Bylaw 58399-312, being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 11509781 as amended, respecting lands known as part of Lot 28, Concession 3, described as Part 1 on Plan 59R 13068, in the city of Port Colborne, located on the east side of Elm Street, north of Barrack Road. Bylaw 58409-412, being a bylaw to establish rules, regulations, and provisions for the management of cemeteries in the city of Port Colborne. Bylaw 58419-512, being a bylaw to establish fees and charges for the cemeteries in the city of Port Colborne. And finally, bylaw 58429-612, being a bylaw to authorize entering into a second contract agreement with Insight Systems, Inc. regarding RFQ 2011-31, integration of water loss analysis tools into a water SCADA system.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Elliott. Councillor Desmarais. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Madam Clerk, confirmatory bylaw.
The following bylaw be read 3 times and finally passed. Bylaw 58439-712, being a bylaw to adopt, ratify, and confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the City of Port Colborne at its special and regular meetings of Council August 13th, 2012.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Steele. Councillor Danch. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Be carried. Before I move on to adjournment. Next meeting, Monday, August 20th, special council meeting here in the chamber at 6:30 p.m. And following that, Monday, August 27th, the committee of the whole, as well as council, once again here in the chamber, beginning at 6:30 p.m. With that, members of council, a motion to adjourn, please. Councilor Kenny, Councilor Steele, any questions or comments? Before I bang the gavel to adjourn, everyone enjoy your summer, enjoy the rest of it, what's left of it. Hopefully the weather gets a little bit better than this rain that we've been having. And make sure it's very safe, and of course, have a lot of fun with your family. With that, members of council, all those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. I adjourn.